West Lombard, an apartment community in St. John's, has permanently solved the problem of those yearly PGE rate hikes. They are 100% solar powered, and electricity is included with every lease. They're also conveniently located directly across from New Seasons Market, close to all the awesome local small businesses in downtown St. John's, as well as the University of Portland and the Adidas North American headquarters. And they're giving away $25 Visa gift cards if you schedule a tour today. Visit westlombard.com for more information. That's westlombard.com.
Diamore Law Group believes personal injury is about public safety, not just a settlement check. Led by veteran trial attorney Tom Diamore, with over 30 years of experience holding negligent drivers, corporations, and unsafe institutions accountable across Oregon. And clients pay nothing unless they win. If you or someone you love has been seriously injured, call 503-222-6333 or visit diamorelaw.com to schedule a free consultation.
Today on CityCast Portland, we're looking into the long and contentious vote for a new city council president, a county report showing how our homeless shelter system is working, and also the dizzying story of the man who rode a horse to a Portland ICE protest and all the lies that unfolded. Joining me on this week's Friday News Roundup are Oregonian City Hall reporter Shane Dixon Kavanaugh and our very own senior producer Giulia Fiaoni. It's Friday, January 16th. I'm Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. Welcome, everyone, to the Friday News Roundup. Shane, Giulia, thank you for joining me this morning.
Hello, good morning.
Thank you both so much. I want to wish the two of you a happy and healthy 2026.
Aww,
Thank you, Shane. Again, I want a compilation of all of Shane's intros.
By far the most sincere and thoughtful.
For sure.
Sorry, everyone else that comes on the show.
Flattery will get you everything.
Today is the day we break down some of the biggest local stories of the week with some of the best and brightest journalists in town. But before we jump into the news, I usually ask our guests an opening question so our new listeners can get to know us all a little better. And today's opening question was inspired by a conversation I had with Oregonian restaurant critic Michael Russell. Shane, you might have heard of him.
I'm a big Michael Russell fan.
Yeah, well, he was on the show yesterday to talk about the deluge of Portland's new Italian restaurants. He went to all the new spots that have opened up since last year, and he shared his top 3 picks, along with which ones he wasn't too impressed with. He got a little spicy. He's a critic, you know? What can you do?
It's his job.
He's got a lot of opinions.
Imagine that. But in our discussion of how Portland has way more pizza restaurants than we know what to do with, and how it's now looking like red sauce Italian might be reaching that same oversaturation. I wondered, what kind of cuisine we are lacking. So my question to you both is, if you had to say on what new food or beverage type of place opened up in your neighborhood, what would it be?
This is a really easy one for me because I think about this all the time. And this is much less about the cuisine and more about the experience. I wish so badly that I had a 24-hour diner within walking distance in my neighborhood. How sweet would that be? I'm talking like mostly booth seating, sticky floors, that hanging lamplight. I want really good banana pancakes. That's it. You don't have to have really much else that's great on the menu. Just a solid, fluffy, sweet banana pancake, and to be open literally every day all the time.
That's all I want. That's all I want. It's 24/7 service.
I don't think that's unreasonable at all.
Thank you, Shane.
That is such a wonderful suggestion, because I absolutely love 24-hour diners. There are an absolute dearth of them here in Portland.
Well, what about you, Shane?
Well, now I want a 24-hour diner in my neighborhood.
Right? Don't we all want that?
But I think what I was going to say, just as sort of a level-setting exercise, is that we as Portlanders have the great good fortune of living in one of the best food cities in America, if not the entire world. And as an added wrinkle of luck for me, I happen to live in a neighborhood that just has phenomenal food of every stripe and kind. I was thinking about this a little bit this morning. I'm in the Montevilla neighborhood, and I can walk to delicious pizza, Mexican, Vietnamese, Chinese. I can get a great burger. I can go eat delicious bar food. I mean, all of this is within 10 minutes of my house. I can go to Olive Garden. I can go to Sailor's Country Kitchen and eat a steak. So what I would love to see in my neighborhood within walking distance of my house is a really good barbecue joint. I love barbecue. And like 24-hour diners, Portland has some really great barbecue, but
not enough.
I feel like there could be a heck of a lot more, and certainly in Southeast Portland.
Have you been to Little Barbecue yet in North Portland?
I have not been to Little Barbecue yet.
Check it out.
Tell me more.
It's supposed to be really good.
Word on the street.
Word on the street. The chef came from Austin. He came from like a Michelin starred barbecue joint, opened up his own. It's now in the Tough Luck bar. I heard it's amazing. It's my next new place I'm going to go check out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's on my list too.
It's just that unfortunately it's also in the same neighborhood as Laverne's, and like it's just so hard not to go to Laverne's.
Not to go to Laverne's, yeah.
Well, mine would definitely be Ethiopian. My neighborhood of St. John's does not have any Ethiopian food. It's one of the things I miss the most about living in Overlook. I was so close to that like East African food block on Killingsworth. There was even a corner store that sold injera and bear in bulk, and all the ingredients needed to make shiro. If you're into Ethiopian food, all the words I just said would have made you just been like, oh, that's amazing. Like, it was so cool. I don't have any of that now. It's fine, but I do miss it. But now I want a cafe. Now I want
a diner.
Also, RIP Overlook Cafe. That was the best one.
I love that spot. Yeah.
All right, guys. We're so wistful now. On to the news of the week. Shane, you're kicking things off with your multi-day reporting of our city council's voting in of a new president. I followed the first day pretty closely, but couldn't track the other 2 times they met to vote. So I'm assuming that after that first day, Shane, which was basically just 9 rounds of stalemate votes with a lot of liberal on liberal violence, that it all went smoothly, right? No racist things were said, and not one white person's feelings got hurt in the process. Did I nail it?
I'm sorry. I think you might have missed the mark a little bit there.
Oh, okay.
Oh, man.
Oh, no. What happened? It was going so well.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, no.
Honestly, you two, I don't even know where to begin or how to begin with this to sort of just capture the full sweep and scope of what we Portland City Hall reporters witnessed over the course of 3 days and more than 12 hours of very heated debate and deliberation and rounds of deadlocked votes to try to get a new city council president here in Portland. The good news is, as of today, we do have a new Portland City Council president. Jamie Dunphy, one of our 3 representatives from District 1, which is all of East Portland, east of the 205, ended up winning 9 votes in the 13th round of voting on the 3rd day in which votes took place. And that was after 4 other candidates who had attempted to become council president failed to muster a majority of support from their fellow 12 council members. So it was long. It was probably extremely exhausting and upsetting for all 12 council members who had to go through that process. And quite frankly, it is in some ways emblematic of many of the deep divisions that we had seen form on council throughout all of its first year in this new form of government, but then really just sort of ratcheted up to a new level, a fever pitch. It became very personal at times, very bitter. And I'm going to be very interested to see how things proceed from here after what we all witnessed over the course of those 3 days. I'm going to stop right there and just sort of open it up to the two of you, like, what's on your mind and what questions might you have that I could potentially help provide a perspective or some answers on?
I know for a minute there, it was kind of caught between Counselor Canal and Counselor Purtle-Guinea. And I just want to hear more about when things shifted to be in the favor of Counselor Dunphy. Was there a clear point for you, Shane?
Well, there wasn't a clear point. Dunphy's candidacy almost came entirely out of thin air, although that clearly wasn't the case. But I want to rewind things a little bit back and actually go back several weeks to mid-December, when I was working on a story that was looking at our upcoming council president election. And I did sort of a profile in year in review of how Alana Purtle-Guinea did on the job in the first year serving as a council president in this new form of government. And I had extensive conversations with nearly every member of the Portland City Council just to get a sense of who they might be supporting, what they would like to see in a council president for next year, and whether or not they would be interested in having this job. Now, I will just go and say that almost universally, the response from people and council members that I talked to, with the exceptions of councilors Purtle-Guinea and Canal, was that under no way,
do they want the job?
No how, I do not want this job.
Yeah.
Jamie Dunphy used to work in the prior form of city government, and he was a staffer for the late Commissioner Nick Fish. And he said something to the effect of, there used to be an old adage in our former government that, like, mayor of Portland was the worst job in Oregon politics. And now I truly believe the worst job in Oregon politics is Portland City Council president. And he then went on to say, in no uncertain terms, he said, I would not consider this job under any circumstances whatsoever.
Oh my God.
Jamie.
So he did not want this job at all. But it became completely clear by like hour 10 or 11, and after 11 rounds of voting, that a divided council was dug in. It was incredibly unlikely that people were going to budge in a direction where they could vote for 7 people, given the roster of candidates that had been floated up until that point. So councilors returned from a kind of long recess in early afternoon on Wednesday. And at that point, Samir Canal, who had been in it to win it through 11 rounds and had gotten 6 votes in all of those 11 rounds, basically said, I would like to put up another potential candidate. And it was Jamie Dunphy. And Dunphy made it very clear at that time that he did not want this job. He was not happy to be nominated as council president, but he said, for the sake of the city, for the sake of this institution and this body, if I could potentially serve as a way to break this stalemate and gridlock and kind of get us back on track, then I'm going to take this on. And that's what happened.
Wouldn't you say, Shane, though, that Alana Purtle-Guinea gained power in a similar fashion, though? I feel like it was stalemate after stalemate, and they were just like, I don't know, Alana, because they saw her as the most middle ground of them all.
Yeah, originally in January of 2025, when they elected their first council president, the contest began between councilors Candace Avalos and Olivia Clark. And there was deadlock and stalemate there as well. But it was 8 rounds of stalemate as opposed to 11. And this unfolded over the course of 2.5 hours.
Which seemed so long then. Do you remember that? When we're like, damn, that's so long. And now it's 3 days. I also want to point out that I called it. Julia was there in the meeting. Do you remember when I said?
I do remember that.
I'm not joking, Shane. I was like, Jamie Dunphy. Let me give you my reasoning.
Yeah.
I only saw the first day, but what I saw was, like you said, the division was there. It was Peacock versus everybody else. And it was very clear that Peacock was not going to budge. It was going to have to be one of them. And out of all of them, I'm like, the one person that I can see everybody being on board with is Jamie. He's the one who's spoken less in all the meetings. He's not a verbose person, has very measured policies, there's just something about him that I feel like everyone could back, and it just made the most sense. But I also knew there's no way in hell he would ever accept, so that surprised me. Because I was like, there's no way Jamie would be like, okay. But I mean, after 3 days and 12 hours, I mean, I would have taken the nomination. I would have just been like, can we just go?
Yeah, and I would also sort of add that one thing that we all saw during those 12 hours was, while there was a lot of anger, hurt feelings, personal attacks, and just an avalanche of pent-up grievances just exploding in council chambers, Jamie Dunphy, throughout that whole process, even while he was not going to be supportive of re-electing Alana Pertle-Guiney to serve in that role as council president for a second year, he made it very clear that his decision not to do so was a philosophical one that was rooted in the fact that he believed that it would be a best practice and the best norm to set that the council president role changes hands every year and not be held by one person in consecutive years. Having said that, he also did not say a bad word about anybody during that time. He was, in fact, incredibly complimentary to former council president Pertle-Guiney. He praised her. He said he did not have a beef with her. He did not, see or experience the things that some of his fellow Progressive Caucus colleagues said they experienced under Pertle-Guiney's leadership. He said she did a good job in year one. He said all of those things. I mean, even in those moments, it was kind of clear, or it sort of emerged, that this was potentially a person that could give everybody a fair shake in year two, but we'll see.
Yeah. I know we're running out of time, but I also just want to quickly chime in that the drama wasn't just the vote itself. There was also all the tangents that were going along with the vote. You might have seen the Portland Mercury article, Shane, where local developer Brian Owendoff texts were seen by one of the reporters. I think it was Jeremiah Hayden who took note of these texts. And it was then discovered that Brian Owendoff was texting Councilor Dan Ryan, and pretty much Councilor Dan Ryan, word for word, repeated the text that Brian told him to say. It was just like, it was kind of interesting. Like, we just saw so much going on the side. And not only that, but then it was discovered that Brian Owendoff, along with whatever thread he was on, was disparaging other counselors, literally called Angelita Murillo a burrito.
Right. Let's just be clear. The text messages that Brian Owendoff was sending in the middle of this council meeting, doing so in a way that other people in council chambers could see, he was saying racist, homophobic things about specifically progressive counselors of color on the Portland City Council. I mean, these were, extremely offensive and vile things. Where I am still a little confused based on what the reporting actually shows, Claudia, you mentioned, it sounds like, and it appears that Brian Owendoff does have some sort of line of communication with Councilor Dan Ryan. But I don't recall seeing in Jeremiah's story that in that instance or episode last week that Owendoff was directly communicating with Ryan, or if he was, that Ryan was somehow repeating things that he was saying that Dan Ryan should say. So
this was in a meeting a few months prior. So it was two different instances. There was an example that the Mercury caught of Dan Ryan and Owendoff communicating in a separate meeting. And now all these months later, they're seeing this string of racist texts related to the council president election.
It was during the conversation where Angelita Murillo was trying to get the rent algorithm AI sorted policy sorted, and Dan Ryan's response to her was basically penned by Brian Owendoff.
Yeah. Not great.
It's not great. And now Councilor Dan Ryan is spinning. He's spiraling because all this came out, and he's very mad at the Portland Mercury. Yeah, you should keep up with the news, Shane.
I do keep up. I do keep up with the news.
It literally started. The fact that you responded to me, I was just joking. I write the news.
Well, and also, I would say, any City Hall reporter who's probably worth their stripes in this town will, at some point in time, piss off an elected official. That's part of doing your job.
You got to do it. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, y'all, if any of this sounded interesting to you, there's so much great reporting by Shane, by Sophie Peel, by Jeremiah Hayden, Alex Zielinski. Go check it out. All different, as Shane just proved, just different viewpoints, different angles, not even like bias, but like a literal, a very physically different angle. But let's take a quick break here, and when we come back, more headlines of the week. Currently at OMSI, you can dive back in time to explore what lurked beneath the surface in Monsters of the Abyss, aquatic predators past and present. This immersive exhibit takes guests on a journey through millions of years, revealing the rise and fall of Earth's most famous and fearsome aquatic predators. It even features a full-scale replica of a Spinosaurus, an aquatic dinosaur even larger than a T-Rex. There's also real fossils you could touch, as well as live animal encounters connected to these creatures of the past, led by expert educators who are ready to answer any questions you might have about life under the sea. This is a perfect outing for families and explorers of all ages. Tickets are on sale now at omsi.edu. That's omsi.edu. Just a quick traveling hack for all the new Oregonians. If you're thinking about getting away somewhere in the state next year, January is actually when locals plan ahead. This is when the best places for the rest of the year start filling up, especially for the summer. Cascadia Getaways is Oregon-owned and operated, run by locals who genuinely love showing people their favorite corners of the state. They have homes on the coast, around Mount Hood in central Oregon, and they just launched in Oregon wine country, which is already booking fast. And when you book directly with Cascadia Getaways, you're skipping the big third-party booking fees, which can be as high as 15 to 20%. You can go take a look at their properties at cascadiagetaways.com to see what's available and to learn more. That's cascadiagetaways.com. The Getaways is plural. Book direct, book local, explore Oregon. All right, Giulia, you have a doozy of a headline you've been excited to share with us all week. Please take the podium.
So my story this week comes from some reporting by Michael Russell at the Oregonian, who we mentioned at the top of this episode. I know, plot twist. And I'm just going to start by reading the headline because, like you said, this story is a roller coaster. So here's the headline to start. He rode a horse to Portland ICE protests, claiming to be Mexican. His family says his story isn't true. So I'm going to try to unpack this for you. So way back in October, during the heat of the troop deployment threats from the Trump administration, and a few days after the second official citywide No Kings protest, a man on horseback arrived at the ICE facility in South Portland to protest. He was dressed in full Western wear, cowboy hat and all, carrying a big Mexican flag on his shoulder. And he told reporters his name is Mateo Garcia. He's a local horse trainer with a ranch in Washington, and that he plans on returning every week with a different horse to protest ICE. So the spectacle of it all was quickly picked up by local outlets. Coin featured him in an evening segment, and the Oregonian had a whole piece about him that included this clip I want to play for you just to illustrate how much this guy was presenting as Mateo. So I'm going to play this real quick.
Oh, God, I'm going to be insulted.
I came out here for mi gente. I'm Mexican and Russian. I came out here to represent for the Mexican people that can't come out here because of what ICE is doing to them, illegally arresting U.S. citizens, Mexicans that hold green cards. So that's what I'm out here for. They apprehended my uncle, which is a U.S. citizen. He's been sitting in ICE. So I'm out here to represent for my people.
What in the Cheech and Chong kind of fucking accent was that?
Mi gente.
Oh. It was the mi gente of it all that made me want to share that with you guys. Anyway,
no, he should have ended with like, and it's no bueno.
And it's no bueno.
It's no bueno.
With a finger wag.
Wow.
Okay, so you heard him mention he has immigrant parents from Mexico and Russia and an uncle detained by ICE. So just remember that detail. So the story really got some attention, and soon a TikTok account associated with the protester advertised shirts with a painting of the protester on horse facing the ice building that people could buy. And on Christmas Eve, the TikTok account began promoting a GoFundMe page titled Stand with Portland Immigrant Families, with Mateo Garcia as the beneficiary. As of earlier this week, he had raised $125 of his $2,600 goal. So this was all happening, but it wasn't long before family members and law enforcement and other acquaintances who said they'd met Garcia reached out to reporters to let them know he was misrepresenting his story. So they identified him as not Mateo Garcia, but Matthew Carl Hoffman, who is 42 years old and originally from Vancouver, Washington. They explained he has no Mexican heritage, just some Russian heritage through a great-grandfather on his mother's side, and that his parents were born locally with German, Irish, and Swiss roots. Most significantly, his family said he has no living uncles, and that from what they know, he does not own a ranch in Washington.
Where were these horses coming from?
At the time he mentioned he was a horse trainer, he was actually just working at a local Jiffy Lube. And it's still unconfirmed where he got these horses from.
Where are the horses from?
So before I talk more about who Matthew Hoffman is, what are your initial reactions to hearing about this? Do you remember seeing this guy back in October? Because I certainly do.
Oh, yeah. Shane, as a white man, can you please explain yourself? I'm just joking.
Can I respectfully take a pass on that question? If I can chime in for a moment, I just want to, one of my first reactions here is that Michael Russell, our restaurant critic for the Oregonian, contains multitudes, and he's just a legendary boss reporter. I read this story within an hour of it publishing. I had no idea he was working on it. I read the thing start to finish. My mind was blown. Mm-hmm. This is already like a sleeper candidate for one of the best stories of 2026.
It's January 15th.
I called him up to tell him as much because it was one of those tales and stories that just gets weirder and more fascinating and more sad, like paragraph by paragraph. And I was just found myself laughing out loud out of just extreme discomfort throughout the entire piece.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk more about some of that digging that Michael did, because I agree, it really just blew me away. So just to make sense of the situation, the Oregonian looked at family photos and mugshots of Matthew Hoffman that closely resemble pictures of the guy on the horse, including his very specific hand tattoos. And they also had a phone number from Garcia that was the same one that was listed by Hoffman in signed court documents back in 2023. And through this, they also found court documents showing Hoffman has at least a dozen felony convictions spanning about 25 years for things like theft, unlawful use of a weapon, and being a felon in possession of a firearm. And the wildest thing is that the Oregonian called Hoffman last week, and this, I just have to read this quote from the interaction. So this is from the story. Quote, "In a phone call last week, the man answered to Matthew, but said he had no clue why anyone would accuse him of not being who he said he was. He said his father, who he identified as Marco Garcia, is a Mexican immigrant living in Vancouver and is still alive, but refused to provide contact information for him or any other friend or family member who could verify his identity." And the Oregonian also found that he really couldn't provide evidence for any of the other claims. He wouldn't even share a picture of his ID to prove he was actually Mateo Garcia and not Matthew Hoffman. And his excuse was that his driver's license was coming in the mail, so he couldn't show the Oregonian who he was. So the last thing I'll share about who Matthew Hoffman is, and this is relating to a case that is involving him. So Multnomah County Deputy District Attorney Eileen Santoyo, who is currently prosecuting Hoffman for illegally firing an assault rifle toward an East County courthouse in Gresham on July 4th, 2024, recognized him as the man on the horse. So she looked at a picture, knows Matthew Hoffman, and said, yeah, that's the same guy.
Oh my God.
And if this is all true, it really sounds like this isn't the first time Hoffman stood firm in the face of being caught in a lie. So a Gresham police detective who investigated his case told the Oregonian that despite video evidence showing Hoffman firing an assault rifle from an apartment complex toward the courthouse in Gresham, his defense was that the gun was a prop. And the quote from the detective was, "He stood on business about this for months." So
the gun that fired a real bullet was
a prop. To wrap this all up, Hoffman pleaded no contest to the gun charge in September and was sentenced to 5 years of probation earlier this week. So that's kind of that. The TikTok account associated with the protester is now private, and the GoFundMe post has been removed. That may be all we hear from Mateo Garcia, at least for now.
Here's the thing.
What do you have to say about it, Claudia?
Now I'm like, am I Mexican?
Oh no.
Shane's gone.
He's gone. We lost him.
We lost Shane.
No, I'm here. God, dude.
He was selling t-shirts.
He was.
It was clearly a grab for profit, but also it's sort of like when I heard about Rachel Dolezal and I was just like, what is going on? And it's certain things that I don't think my mind can comprehend.
Mm-hmm.
But just the sheer privilege of a white man being able to cosplay as a Mexican in this timeline is just like the audacity. And also the sheer privilege of knowing, like, at any point, I could be just, JK, man, I'm Matthew Hoffman. All right, peace. You know what I mean?
It's the mi gente of it all that really
is.
got me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's it. That's
so what's
the story.
Gonna happen to him? What happened to the horses? What's going on?
I have no clue.
Answers.
That's the question that's unanswered that I wish I knew more about. But I guess no news is good news about the horses at this point.
Yeah. Shane, are you ready to speak for all white people about this?
No, thank you.
Okay, great. All right. Well, then we're going to take a quick break here. And when we come back, more headlines of the week.
Oh my God, dude.
Crazy story.
A new year is the perfect time for a fresh start. If you've been wanting to improve your team's work dynamics and communication, and no one has taken you up on a top golf outing, check out Skill Charter. They're a locally owned leadership development company that's already helped colleagues at Portland State, Wild Cannabis, and Nonstop Health reconnect, reset, and actually work better together. Skill Charter's workshops are fun, affordable, and designed to create real lasting change long after everyone goes back to the office. They help growing organizations build strong teams by providing the space to finally have the kinds of conversations you never have time for. They bring the structure, facilitation, clarity, practical tools, and plenty of humor. You just have to bring your people. To learn more, explore case studies, or connect with co-founders Kate and Corin, go to skillcharter.com. That's skillcharter.com. All right, guys, so this week I'm doing an updates of sorts to the conversation I had on Tuesday's episode with Oregonian homelessness and mental health reporter Lillian Monjo Hughes. She spoke to us, gave us a check-in and look ahead on where Portland is with solving its homelessness crisis. And later this week, she wrote a story following how well our shelter system is accomplishing permanent housing via a Multnomah County report. Because they released this report basically tracking their progress and how much they're spending. Anyone willing to guess how well we're doing?
Probably not great.
Yeah, not great. All right. So this Multnomah County Adult Shelter Review just focused on the time span starting from July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. So just know that's the window they were looking at. And aside from trying to better understand how the shelter system is performing, they wanted to use the report's finding to make decisions on how to allocate resources, because as we talked about on Tuesday's episode, Fed cuts are coming for homeless services, and our regional homeless service tax is slowing down in revenue. So right at the top, their report showed that just 16% of people move from shelter to housing. And it concludes that the system might help more people by reducing the number of shelter beds and increasing housing support. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? Well, let me get into it. So all of this is something that experts have been saying since forever. But when this report was presented, we lost Shane again. But when this report was presented, Actual providers were able to give testimony, and I found their input particularly compelling. They reminded county commissioners that many of the people who stay at these shelters are just not likely to be physically or mentally able to live independently, and that housing placement alone should not be the only metrics by which a shelter is judged. Alicia Hovanes, chief operating officer of shelter provider Sunstone Way, gave this really vivid example of a shelter guest who stripped naked in front of 100 people, then defecated in his hand before attacking shelter workers by throwing a heavy glass Yankee candle at them. She said, quote, "This is not a behavioral health issue resolved by housing navigation or case management. This is an acute psychiatric episode occurring in a non-clinical environment." Translation, shit's crazy, dog. Like, what are we supposed to do here? We don't have the resources for this. Other testimonies mirrored hers, pointing out that without additional support for residential mental health and addiction treatment, shelters would not be able to successfully house people needing these types of services, which is unfortunately becoming a majority of the people who are needing these services. And that those were the cases where people stayed much longer, like months and months in shelters without ever finding permanent housing. And at this point, they're just keeping people safe off the streets because that's all they can do with what they have to work with. Now, the shelters that appear to be the most successful were those that were able to provide more focused care to less people coming from either a similar background or level of need, which many had been triaged from larger shelters and then connected to these smaller programs. So, identifying the people who are ready for housing and then providing them with those tools to get housing equaled success. Imagine that. Now, the report also found that the cost per bed or room varied greatly from shelter to shelter, and more expensive didn't always mean more success, and vice versa, because like congregate shelters, which are the dorm-like shelter spaces our mayor has been pushing, they moved the most people into permanent housing at the lowest cost, but did so at the lowest rate. And Anna Plum, the interim director of the Homeless Service Department, pointed out, "We've been able to rapidly expand the number of shelter beds in our community, but the availability of housing assistance hasn't kept up." So the report also found that it was hard to track all the data because none of these shelters had uniform funding. None of them had access to the same resources, and also thousands of people leave congregate shelters or other shelters each year without telling anyone where they are headed. And they could have found housing, we don't know, but their exits are simply included as non-housed exits. Does that make sense? So we don't have complete data, but even with this incomplete data, the report clearly pointed out that more resources need to go to mental health and addiction treatment. And as Commissioner Shannon Singleton stated in the work session where the report was presented, we can't shelter our way out of homelessness.
Yeah.
So, what do you guys think of all this? I feel like we keep saying the same stuff over and over again, and then like nothing happens with our money.
That is it. It seems like to me that there are all of these combined efforts focusing on different things, but they're not working in unison. And the fact that we can't coordinate all of these services has continued to be such a problem. And the point that you made there, Claudia, about we've been for a while now just trying to wrangle the safety issue at hand. And I do believe that that was a part of Mayor Keith Wilson's plan, was to address that aspect of it and try to figure out the rest of it later. And that's kind of what's happening. Right now, it doesn't seem to be really doing anything super beneficial, but we also haven't taken the time to see how these temporary shelters impact the larger issue at hand over time, because it's been such a short amount of time that these shelters have been available for people.
What about you, Shane?
I think what I am struck by and left with, and I come back to these thoughts almost every time I turn my attention to this continued and arguably growing humanitarian crisis here in Portland, is that the need is unbelievably vast. And then the needs are also not uniform for the people who require the assistance. We know we don't have enough housing right now, available housing at this moment to get people off the streets and into permanent homes. we know that the way in which we can do that largely is with rental assistance. And that money is drying up right now. So we need more rental assistance. Yes. We need more homes for people to use that rental assistance to go to. Yes. We need more behavioral health and addiction wraparound services for people who aren't ready to be housed. Yes. And so on and so forth. It's one of the real challenges with our homelessness crisis is that there are these overlapping and at times competing needs with a limited amount of resources. In some ways, it's a political problem in the sense that there are going to inevitably be choices made. There are going to be winners and losers from those choices. And no solution is going to be complete or even perfect. And a lot of the discussion is around with what is the best balance or use of these very limited resources for, once again, a need that is just unbelievably vast. Yeah. And, the solution arguably is all of the above.
Yeah.
But on a scope and scale that even if we're pouring in billions of dollars into the Portland metro region, it's not enough.
Well, it starts from the top. We've been saying this forever. It starts from the top. It starts from the federal government down. And what ends up happening is whatever the federal government does affects us locally, right? And they've been cutting services. We're basically seeing the aftermath of what's been happening since, the late 70s, 80s. Like we're seeing all the cut to social services just come down. And this is capitalism. It is literally just a hamster wheel. And the moment you trip, you're just spinning in this wheel. And this is what happens with people, when they're not able to stay on their feet. We're drowning in late stage capitalism. And it's fucked up because we can't, we're just trying to fix something that I'm not saying is unfixable, but it is with where we are federally.
Yeah.
I guess per usual, this issue is to be continued and we will continue following it. And it is getting to a point where it feels again like we're going crazy about it.
Claudia, how you're rubbing your forehead is discouraging right now.
Sorry, it's just
so you know.
I just if you're a listener and you read these reports or you listen to what we're saying, you have a job, you have a different job. Your job isn't our job in a sense where we're constantly looking at the same pattern and we're just we can see the pattern. Can no one else see the pattern? Because we can see the pattern. And it feels like we're going crazy. That is all.
Yeah, it's a collective head rub.
It's a collective head rub. But before we head out...
I wonder if Mateo could start selling some collective head rub t-shirts and I might buy one.
Yeah, only if it's in Spanish.
It would have to be in Spanish.
Well, before we head out, we do have some shout outs. These always cheer you up, Shane.
Yes.
These are your I know. These are your faves.
I've been waiting all morning for this. Let it rip.
All right.
Let it rip.
So these shout outs are from members of our Portland Neighbors program. One of the perks of being a paying member of CityCast Portland is the opportunity to shout out a local business or organization that you love, on top of ad-free listening and a bunch of other perks. But Giulia, do you want to kick us off?
Yes. This one is from listener Erisa P. And they say, Dick's Primal Kitchen in Woodstock. They do fundraisers for the local schools as well as have a free community room, which people can use for meeting up. One rainy day, I stopped for lunch for a school fundraiser and didn't have my bike lock with me. They let me bring in my bike. Can't get more wonderful than that.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
That's such a uniquely Portland thing where you're just this is how cool they are. They let me bring my disgusting bike in.
On a rainy day.
On a rainy day, yeah. I have one here from listener Beverly R. David Kerr Violin Shop on Southeast 28th is the best. Smart, nice, honest people who are quick with repairs. I love them.
I have another one here from listener Kristen C. And they say, Atomic Auto in Hazelwood is the best Prius repair business. They only fix what is wrong and do it in a way that makes sense for your car. Which, don't you just wish that every auto repair shop was like that? That you just had a guarantee that they're only going to fix what's wrong and that it made sense?
Aw, Giulia, being a new car owner sucks, huh?
I know. You can hear it in my tone, huh?
She recently purchased a vehicle, not having a vehicle for like ever.
Literally my whole
boy.
life. Yeah.
And now she's like, oh, this is why this sucks.
Yep.
Well, shout out to Arisa, Beverly, Kristen, and a huge thanks to our newest member, John C. When you join as a Portland neighbor, we'd also be happy to read out your shout outs of places you love, alongside a bunch of other perks like I mentioned, ad-free listening and invites to member-only events. Join at membership.citycast.fm. That's membership.citycast.fm. Well, you guys, thanks again for hanging out with me. Shane, it's always a pleasure to host you. Giulia, it's always a delight when you're on. I hope that you both and everyone listening have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks, Claudia.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Before we head out, I just wanted to share that we are looking for a full-time audience development manager for the CityCast Portland team. This person is going to shape how we show up for Portland via social media, partnerships, events, just general listener engagement. We're looking for someone who's plugged into Portland culture, online culture, and, just stuff happening around town, what people actually care about. This position comes with good benefits and competitive pay. Applications are due Friday, January 30th. Head over to citycast.fm/jobs for all the details. That's citycast.fm/jobs. That's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thank you so much for listening. Our podcast production team this week was John Atariani, Giulia Fiaoni, Laura Satsui, and myself. Our newsletter editor is Rachel Monahan, and our host is me, Claudia Meza. Original music by Jenny Conley and Stephen Drizos. Additional music by All the Kimonos, as well as Sarah the Instrumentalist, Timothy Infinite, and Gregory David, courtesy of Epidemic Sound, along Opal 99 and D-May, courtesy of Triple Scoop Music. We'll be back Monday morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.